Okay, it's 2 o'clock. Welcome to Show Me Online Teaching, where our goal is to provide practical ideas for online teaching and learning. Each episode is going to feature a guest speaker, guest teacher, sharing a favorite lesson, and in writing project style, we'll work with activities and ideas that are applicable across subject areas and grade levels, elementary through college. So today we're excited to have Barry Bumgardner join us to share her lesson. We'll also have support adapting this lesson from Casey Doherty in Republic School District, from Jeff Deerking in Raytown, and all of you on the call, welcome. Remember to use your chat feature, post questions, make comments while keeping yourself muted. And because she is way cooler than me, and I would totally botch it if I tried, I'm gonna let Barry introduce herself to you.
Well, hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. I don't have everybody in gallery view, so I'll kind of scroll around. I feel like a master Zoomer now. I'm a college professor. I teach at Westminster College. I'm an education department chair. I teach teachers how to teach, elementary, middle, and high. So I do all levels. I am our digital literacy coordinator. So we had launched iPads with our faculty 2 years ago. And our students had all gotten them this year, and thank goodness for that. That has made our lives pretty seamless. We've really transitioned to the online format pretty smoothly. I'm also an author. I kill people for a living, so I'm definitely making time for that. Corona is definitely going to weave its way into a book. I may name my next dog COVID or something, so. Yes, it has been a very interesting time. So do you want me to go ahead and dovetail into my lesson? Okay, so to kind of explain a little bit, because I teach teachers how to teach, I also spend a lot of time in K through 12 classrooms, which is very important to me. I don't feel like I can teach teachers how to teach if I'm not staying very current and relevant. So the activity I'm going to do with you today is something I have done with my elementary ed folks. I actually had several secondary ed folks in there as well. And then I went into a classroom and did this with third graders. So this semester, I got lucky enough to had just gotten this done. So this activity is all about perspective. And while perspective isn't introduced into the Missouri Learning Standards until 6th grade, the idea of making predictions and teaching kids what it means to empathize, making predictions is in the standards beginning kindergarten. So that's something that we'll definitely be able to kind of adjust. And I do that a lot when I'm teaching with my students. I will do an aside and say, look at these standards and make sure you're seeing how we're aligning this to the standards. But the lesson I'm doing today, I call it Keeping Life in Perspective. And I thought in this COVID-19 era, this was going to be a really good time to do something like this and just not forget what it means to keep life in perspective. So thinking about what it means what perspective means for kids, what it means for you all. The first thing I want to do, if I were doing this with my elementary ed folks, we would talk about perspective. You know, how's your perspective on teaching changed right now? But then how would you talk about this with a kindergartner and talk about point of view and just being able to walk in someone else's shoes and be empathetic? So making sure they're really understanding what I mean by that. With third graders, I asked the question and they knew the definition better than my college students did. So that was pretty fun. But a lot of them would really quickly say, just seeing through someone else's eyes, you know, looking at something and being able to be objective and just having that view on something. So the first thing I want you all to do, I do a lot of writing workshop in my classroom, reading workshop. My students are still meeting in their writing clubs, their book clubs, even in the online format, Zoom, and their breakout rooms. The first thing I want you to do, whatever device you have or whether you're doing it on paper, the first thing I want you to do, and Julie's going to pull up the next little prompt here, I want you to tell me 10 things that you want. I want you to just free write for about 2 minutes, and I want you just to list everything you can think of that you want. Okay, so as you're thinking about that, I want you to just think about all the things, physical, emotional, abstract, come up with at least 10 things you want. I'm gonna set a timer, go. Okay, you have about 10 seconds. Okay, so if I were doing this in a face-to-face class with my students, we would do table share. We would sit and have a conversation about what this looks like, and we can absolutely share in true modeling format for me. Some of the things mine feels, those of you going through the teaching in an online world, I want a real vacation. I want more bandwidth. I want the sun. I would like COVID to go away. I want to eat in a restaurant. I would like to hug my friends. I want tableside guacamole. I want to sit in a restaurant. Those are just some of the things I want. So everybody share at least one thing they want. Bus rides. I like bus. Oh, live baseball. I don't even know how to feel right now without baseball. I had tickets to opening day weekend, Cardinals. Julie Newman, I like that response to know that everybody's healthy. A warm spring. Yes, healthy. Oh, Amy, a dog. Okay. I don't, I think I need to talk to Amy about what's been going on in her life to have that comment. Okay, so and as you can see, doing that in a chat feature is really cool. With my students, I've been doing automatic breakout rooms and been doing various things to get them also talking, but the chat feature works really well. So now, Julie, in about 10 seconds, is going to share a video with you. And when this video plays, I want you thinking about that list you just made while you're watching this video. Okay, so just kind of play that in the back of your mind, but just watch the video.
Why should it be like this? I don't know. It's not fair. Yeah, I know. There's nothing that we can do. I don't want to be like this. Me neither. I wish I was like him. I want to be like him. I want to be like him. I want to be like him. Yes! Yes!
Sorry to take so long, dear. Are you ready to go now?
Keep an eye on the little boy's face as he comes up the pathway. Okay, so after watching that video, one of the things I will tell my students or the third graders I just did it with, what's your immediate gut reaction to that? It puts perspective in a whole new light. So immediately following watching that, I now want you to list, Julie's gonna add this prompt up there. I now want you to list 10 things you don't want. So below that other list, I'm going to again give you about 2 minutes. I want you to list 10 things now that you don't want. Okay, go. You have about 10 seconds. So one of the interesting things as I do this activity with my college students, it's a pretty significant shift from what they listed they wanted to what they then listed that they didn't want, and how much you take on a different perspective after watching that video. I use that video in 2 different classes of mine to really I use it in one class just as a writing prompt, just to write afterward. But now that you've listed 10 things you don't want, I want you to revisit that initial list. So if you're looking at that initial list, how would you edit that list? How would you go back to that first list of the 10 things you want? What do you think that would look like now? I purposely do the don't want because you can then see my don't want list. 10 things I don't want, I immediately put to take for granted what I am lucky enough to have, to wish away what I perceive as necessary evils. I don't want a vacation or a cruise, so I don't want a vacation like I kind of thought I did. Keeping in perspective, I don't want to see my friends until I know it's safe, right? And going back and revisiting that list, how would you change the list initially where I said I want a vacation? I really don't want a vacation. After watching that, I want to be grateful for what I have, and really looking at what that looks like. With the 3rd graders, it was really interesting to see them then say, I want my friends to have as much as I have. I actually stole some of the answers from some of the 3rd graders that I did this with in February. So taking one little boy said, I want all my friends to be as lucky as me. I want to share my 3 dogs with 2 of my friends. So you immediately saw a shift in perspective about things, about materialism, and it really shifts children, maybe even more so than college students or teachers. And how I use this in my classroom is these all now become seeds for future writing. So in my classes, this would be in a composition book. We actually take the pages and we will fold a page in half in the middle of their composition book. And they will take some of these things they listed, list them on that seeds list. And these then become writing prompts. These will then become the things that they do and the pieces that they can then choose to write about in our classic writing workshop. The 3rd graders were already developing seeds when I was doing this. So I then talked about the word vacation could become a seed, good or bad, right? Where I said I want more bandwidth. What I don't want is to take my bandwidth for granted, right? But bandwidth would definitely be a big seed for a lot of people right now, and just how you would write off of that. So that's just in a little nutshell, one of my writing workshop activities that I do with college students. I did this, I actually did a variation of this back when I taught 8th and 9th grade. This video wasn't out then, so I didn't have that, which shows you how old I am. But a lot of different ways you can use this. So questions, what are some questions folks have? And I'm seeing your comment. I love some of your comments. Yeah, and Katie made a really good comment. Love having students develop their own stories from what they want and they don't want. And it's a really fun compare contrast. I use that as a compare contrast activity for a lot of stories, but it's Casey said true authentic writing territory. So that's something that's really good, and this would definitely be good with heart maps. Kelly Gallagher has a couple of activities that I use this to dovetail into as well. And
yeah,
yes,
I'll just
Tammy, go ahead.
I'll hop in here, Barry. Just I just want to elaborate a little bit on the writing territories. I mean, our students are, it's so important that they write about what they know about. And man, this really took me to some very detailed things that I know about that I wasn't expecting. These are what I want, but I want it because I know about it. And now when that shift in perspective it takes me to a new place. So I feel like using those as writing territories. You mentioned Kelly Gallagher, but I would mention Georgia Hurd's Heart Map book for elementary has so many of these opportunities for students to put down these seeds, and where do these seeds live inside of your heart and your body. And then I would also, I'm going to add one more thing for secondary, to me would be I can see me doing this in a secondary classroom on perspective of characters that we're reading about. How do we know them? What does that character want? And then after viewing a video like this, how does the character change, or how does that character change even through the novel? How can we learn how to transfer this information we're doing for ourselves to a fictional setting? Because that, I mean, you mentioned earlier, Barry, we're learning empathy here, and that's what fiction does for us, right? We learn those traits. So thank you for sharing this activity and letting me hop on. I think Jeff might have something, or Katie might have something else to add.
I just wanted to point out one thing that I thought about the use of the chat feature. Sometimes we think of it as like, because we're teaching online, we have to make do with what we have. But I actually think it's really useful to have students post one item in the chat feature. It's an equalizer, right? Everybody's sharing, and we're sharing one thing, and it sort of flattens it because it's, you know, you're not saying it out loud and associating it with a particular person. So it just, I think it's a feature that can work really well when we're doing something like you had us do.
I think one of the things I've seen in my classes is my freshmen and sophomores, and I saw it in the third grade classroom, really shy kids are never going to speak up. But when I do the chat feature, and you can change on the chat feature, it can be to everyone, or it can be to someone specific. So I've had students share something with me that they've not shared to whole group, which I love that about the chat feature in Zoom. So yes, that's a very important feature I've used.
So thinking about it kind of from a technical perspective or adaptation, I think we saw a good example here of it is tough to send a video through a Zoom meeting. And when you share your screen and you run a video on it, it's going to look choppy, and the sound's going to be off. And so it's also kind of there might be a sort of adaptation here of flipping the classroom a little bit, posting the video on a classroom site saying, go watch this, now come back and have this conversation, so they can get it a little more fully, right? And sort of have the ability, and to have the ability to go back and watch it again and sort of look a little more carefully. And I really like the idea of writing seeds, and of the idea of planting these ideas that maybe later we go back to, maybe we don't. I mean, it's not, maybe it's not going to hit with every kid, but the more you do this, the more you're going to have, you know, the ability to go back and say to a student, okay, go pick one of your crops, right? Like, which one of those has bloomed. So I really like that as well.
I like that idea. You know, when I did a video in one of my classes last week, I actually used another device and airplayed it to my TV and turned my camera so the students could watch the video on my TV, which made it not hitch. So that's a great point you bring up. But I love the flipping idea. All right. So Julie, I will turn it back over to you or to Katie.
I'm going to hop in real quick and say, now I can't see it on my chat, but Julie Newman somewhere on the chat that I can't see mentioned something about Gretchen Burnaby and the Kernel essays. And oh my gosh, I loved that comment you made, Julie. It reminded me of that's a really fantastic next step, I think. So thank you for sharing that resource and that nugget there.
And I want to thank all of you for being on the call today. This concludes our Show Me Online teaching activity for Monday. You're all encouraged to join us again. We'll be back on Wednesday. And I've totally blanked on who we're going to have with us, but I know it's going to be somebody awesome. And you can go to our website, the Missouri Writing Project Network website. That's where you'll find the recording for this and all previous episodes. So until then, thank you so much to Barry, and thank all of you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves and each other.